sound cliche, but how many leaks can the human body sustain before the person who's taking it upon themselves to enter your home rethinks their priorities in life? Hey guys, this is Jeff. Got another video for you. This one's on home defense weapons and the kind of weapons that you'd want to select if you're looking to find the right weapon for defending your home, defending your family, defending your property. Now, there's going to be variables here in this conversation that I'm going to go through, and I'm not going to touch on everything, but I'm going to try to address the majority of the topics as I see them. Now, there'll be other people who may argue with that rationale and why I select the weapons that I select for the reasons that I select them. And if you do have disagreements with me, please throw those comments into the comment section. I'd be happy to discuss these with you. So first thing I wanted to discuss about is the variables of the different kinds of weapons that you could use in your home defense kit to serve the purposes for the area that you live in. Now, some people live in urban areas, some people live in rural areas, some people live in suburban areas. So what you use and how you use it is going to be dependent on construction materials, what's your house made out of, do you have other people in your family that you're concerned about potentially overpenetration, and collateral damage through overpenetration of certain kinds of rounds. Are you going to be dealing with predators, say, on a large piece of property, and you're going to need to reach out and touch those, animals or whatever? Are you going to need a longer range weapon? Are you only dealing with internal threats? So somebody enters your home, and what are the variables that are associated with that? So anyway, I just wanted to cover some of the topics that we'll be discussing in this conversation. And so let's go ahead and get started. So there's all kinds of guns that I've pulled out for you guys to look at. And, when you're picking a gun, depending on your scenario, one's going to be better than the other. And there will be guns that will transcend a lot of these, different scenarios. But I'm going to cover that and I'm going to cover the different guns, explain how I feel they would be well served, and then you can make the decision on what's right for you. First thing I wanted to discuss with any weapon that you're going to select, you're usually going to have the scenario of, whatever's occurring is going to be occurring usually in the evening. There won't be a lot of light out, or if it is, it's not going to be, there'll be shadows, there'll be areas of your home or your property where it's going to be difficult to make out what you're looking at. So if you have a scenario like that, the very first thing you want to consider is having a good light. Now, there's a lot of good flashlights on the market. A lot of good companies make a lot of good lights, but I think that having a good light is critical if you're going to play first responder in defending your home, your property, your family. So, how many lumens, what kind of batteries, it runs the gamut. I would say you're probably going to want something over 50 lumens if that's what you're looking for. If that's the spec you want to measure. There's different batteries, CR123s, there's rechargeables, there's, just a couple of good companies I would recommend. Surefire and Streamlight, those two come to mind. Phoenix, Olight, there's a bunch of different ones. I don't get any credit or any kickbacks from any of these companies, so I'm not going to recommend one specific, other than there's a lot of them out there, a lot of features to choose from. Try, buy, and make sure you incorporate it into your home defense scenario. Now, this is just an external light. I would recommend a light like this if you're using a weapon such as a revolver that, and all these weapons have been either safety checked or will be handled in a safe manner. But at any rate, this gun right here doesn't have any way of attaching a light to it. So, using a weapon that doesn't have that, there's different techniques. So you're going to want to practice certain techniques with this kind of a weapon. Other weapons that you can choose from they'll have a light rail. And the main thing here that I'm trying to convey is any weapon that you select for your home defense tool should have a light attached to it or a light available to be used in that scenario, because the worst thing you want to do is shoot somebody that you care about, somebody you love. If you got a teenager, you've got a pet or something, and you go and shoot at something that you think is something else in the middle of the night, and you hurt or kill something that you care about, you will have to live with those consequences. You can't take that bullet back once it's been discharged from the firearm. That is a permanent choice, and you should be 110% sure that what you're doing is legal and justified. I mean, you don't want to hurt somebody that you care about, right? So anyway, moving along. So I wanted to cover, I've started to cover the types of weapons. So I'll just go through them real quick. So here's a revolver. This has a lot of good application. Here's a pistol. So other weapons to consider. This is a full-size 18-inch barreled home defense shotgun, 12 gauge. Another weapon to consider, an AR pistol. This is a pistol length, arm braced rifle caliber pistol, the AR-15 pistol. And I will cover the specific features on each one of these, but I just wanted to kind of go over them in general at first. And a full-length barrel. AR-15 rifle. This is not my choice for home defense. It is the choice for some, and I'll cover why I don't think it is, but I just wanted to show it here so you guys see what I'm referring to. And I'll use it for demonstrations here in a little while. So moving into it, I'll just start with the different. So I talked about the light. Now we can talk about capacity, right? So when you're selecting a weapon, either it be semi-automatic or you select a revolver. One of the considerations you need to take into account for is the capacity of that particular weapon. So on the Smith & Wesson M&P 9, you get 17 plus 1. So that's 18 rounds of 9mm. On the 38 357, you get anywhere from 5 to, I've seen some up in the, 8. And if it's a smaller caliber, like a 22, you can get them as high as 10 rounds in a revolver. Home defense / carry weapons, like this, single stack Smith & Wesson Shield, they go 8. You can get conversions for the magazines. You can take them up to 10. They come standard with 6 or 7, I think it's 7 or 8 round magazines plus 1. So, that's a significant capacity disadvantage. And when you're talking about, a potential home defense scenario, it's all about having advantage, right? Firepower, ammunition, light, tactical advantage in the sense that you know your property better than someone else who's coming into your home knows your property. Other considerations, 30 round magazine in the AR. You can get drums. You can get on the home defense shotgun. This is, I think it's 5 or 6 plus 1, 6 rounds. A lot of ammunition or a lot of power coming out of something like this, but you're limited in the number of times you can pull the trigger. And, that can be a disadvantage. If you empty out your magazine, with 5 or 6 shots, what are you going to do then? You're going to have to reload. If you don't have enough ammunition with you, where are you going to get ammunition? Or are you just going to be walking around with an empty club? So, I highly recommend that people consider the capacity of the weapon that they're choosing for a home defense weapon. And that's why I say it's probably better to have multiple weapons when you're considering someone who may be a licensed to carry holder. So if you're a licensed to carry holder and you've got a single stack Smith & Wesson Shield in this particular instance, and that's your only gun, well, it's better than nothing. But if you have the funds or if you have the ability to buy that next weapon in your home defense category, consider something that you're not going to carry around. So the amount of capacity that you have in it can play a huge factor in that. Do you want 17 plus 1? Do you want a lot of bang for your buck? Or do you want, major capacity? So those are all considerations and factors to keep in mind when you're selecting your home defense gun. The next thing I wanted to talk about are certain features when it comes to the use of long guns, right? So I talked about having a light, on a home defense gun. So we'll use the AR-15 pistol here. So, here it has a light attached. Highly recommend having a light attached. This is my home defense weapon, or one of them. This is my primary go-to whenever something bumps in the night. I keep a pistol by the bed, and pistols are used to get to your long gun. And in my case, I've chosen this AR-15 pistol as my long gun go-to. But one of the things that I wanted to point out, and using this as an example, is I have a sling on here. Now, I recommend a sling on a long gun for your home defense, because when you've got it and you're looking around for the bad guy, and you may be doing some kind of just a cursory clear of your home, and you're not exactly sure what that bump was, but you've got your gun at the low ready or whatever, and you come around the corner, and if there's somebody there and they grab a hold of that and they try to pull it from you and wrestle it away from you, now you're defenseless. You have no weapon now. So whether they use it as a weapon or if they use it as a club is irrelevant at that point, because they have the advantage over you. You have nothing now. Now you're just down to your birthday suit and your charm and your wit, where before you had they have the tactical advantage now. So what I recommend is, if you're going to use a long gun for home defense, every long gun should be attached with some sort of sling. You can throw the sling over in no time at all. And in this particular case, it's a single point sling, so it hangs. I can, if I had to drop it and go hand to hand, or I'm fighting with somebody, or I'm wrestling with somebody, or I just want to push the door shut or whatever, I don't have to hold on to this gun. I don't have to find a place to throw it. And if I do drop it and I need to pick it back up, it's right there. I have it. It's in close proximity. So that is a major consideration I apply to any long gun for home defense. Make sure you have a good sling. Make sure you're versed in how to use that sling. Make sure it's fit and ready to go for you. And I'll show you on the shotgun as well, right? So this is an opportunity. Shotguns are limited in capacity, but the easiest way to get around having a limited capacity is having a sling. In this particular case, I have a bandolier that has extra capacity on the sling. Also, on a shotgun, these butt cartridge carriers that go on over the butt. This one's just a little nylon Velcro cartridge carrier. If this is all you had and just a basic sling, there's nothing wrong with this setup. Even if you didn't have the extra capacity on the sling like this, if you just had a few extra rounds on the butt of the gun, that's going to give you more capacity. That's definitely going to aid in your defensive situation. So back to the pistols again. Pistols 17 plus 1 rounds versus a rifle 30 plus 1 rounds. There's obviously no sling for this, but it has the light. You have the ability to maneuver it, keep it close to you so people can't get it from you. So yeah, that's covering slings for retention. Now, I did want to talk about the different kinds of guns and why you would select one over the other, right? So there's a lot of internet lore around using a revolver for a home defense weapon. Now, the theory with that is if you use a revolver for a home defense weapon, there's less moving parts. Therefore, you're not going to have to concern yourself with jams. If you pull the trigger and it doesn't go bang, you pull the trigger again, it can go bang. It'll hit the next round in the cylinder, which is accurate. But revolvers also have problems. You can, there's a lot of mechanism, there's a lot of intricacies inside the frame here that allow for this revolver to rotate that cylinder, line the cylinder up with the barrel, and if that timing gets out of whack, the gun could fail to fire. It won't. You can just have problems with it. So understanding your firearm, whether it be a revolver or a semi-automatic, and the different problems that you could experience when selecting each one, is important in your home defense weapon. If you're the man of the house, or you're the only adult, you're a female, understand you've been left in charge, or you have made the choice to take on the defense of your home, your family, your property, and you're selecting a weapon, you're viewing this video and you're selecting that weapon. Don't get the weapon that's going to leave you at a disadvantage. But whatever you get, understand what you get. I can't emphasize that enough. Become familiar with the operation of the gun. How does it work when you pull that trigger and it doesn't click? How do you clear it and get back on target? Because if you're just sitting there pulling the trigger, and nothing's happening, what are you going to do? You're going to panic and you're just going to throw it at them, or understand this tool. It is a tool. It's like a wrench, socket set, whatever. You need to understand it. So other options that a lot of people consider to be taboo in the internet lore of the gun world is using a cartridge that's less than desirable. And what I mean by that is, there's a lot of ballistic experts out there who understand kinetic energy, how transference of energy from a pistol round into the human body, and the impacts of that are going to be factored into debilitating someone and their ability to continue to fight. Well, there's a lot of arguments about that. A lot of arguments. 40 versus 9mm versus 45 versus AR versus AK, etc., etc., etc. I think everybody will agree that a rifle round in a longer barrel will do more damage to a human body than a pistol round in a shorter barrel. And that just comes down to simple math and energy transference. But that said, that's if you're looking for the one-stop shot, which nobody in a home defense situation should really be too concerned about. I think it's more beneficial for you to be the first person to put a shot on target, to have that gun, know how to use it, and to have enough ammo to use in that defensive scenario. And what I mean by all that, or what am I leading up to when I say all this? So what I'm leading up to is there's a lot of people out there who will say, don't ever use a 22. Don't ever use a 32. Don't ever use a 38. Don't ever use 25. What I'll say to that is if, number one, that's all you can afford, then use it. If you're an elderly person, or you have problems, carpal tunnel, you have finger strength problems, there's a lot of guns out there now. The Smith & Wesson Shield 380 EZ is a really good gun. You should look into it if you have those scenarios, or those situations. But if you're selecting a 22 revolver, you don't want to deal with how to manipulate the slide. You don't want to deal with a magazine and having to insert a magazine, rack the slide, put it on target, know how to clear a malfunction, stovepipe, failure to eject, etc., etc. And you want less mechanical moving parts, but you're still willing to understand your firearm, then having a 22 with low recoil, less impulse, concussive impulse whenever you pull that trigger, there's nothing wrong with that. And the reason I say there's nothing wrong with that is because it all comes down to how many, and this is going to sound cliche, but how many leaks can the human body sustain before the person who's taking it upon themselves to enter your home rethinks their priorities in life, right? So if they get hit with one round, there's not going to be a lot of energy transference, but there's going to be a sensation. Their body doesn't feel right, and if, depending on where you hit them in the head, they can go down right there and then. But if you hit them in the body, they're going to start to lose blood volume. They're going to start to feel pain. They're going to find it a little more difficult to breathe. Their body's going to be telling them that something's wrong. And if you shoot them again and again and again, because that 22 has little or no impulse, and you're just putting rounds into them, one right after the other. And there's the sound, there's that sensory deprivation where there's going to be a loud pop going off. And even in an enclosed environment, you're going to have a loud pop. There's nothing wrong with a 22. Next thing I want to talk about is stopping power, overpenetration, the ability to reach out and touch the person that you're targeting, to stop whatever threat it is. But also to minimize or limit overpenetration in your home. If you have children, you have a spouse who's asleep in the next room, you have neighbors that are real close to you, you're living in a condo or a duplex, or you're living in a trailer, you're living in a mobile home, you're living in an RV. Do you want to use a .357 as your home defense weapon? Do you want to use an AR-15 round as a home defense weapon at 2,000, 3,000 feet per second? Or do you want to consider something like a 9mm with a frangible ammunition? And frangible ammunition, if you don't understand, frangible ammunition is a kind of ammunition that when it hits a solid surface, it shatters into dust. Look into it a little bit more. I don't fully understand all the mechanics behind that, the metallurgy that it takes, but it's supposed to be very good for defense scenarios. So when it hits soft tissue, it'll retain its form, but when it hits a hard object like a 2x4 or sheetrock, it's supposed to splatter very easily. So those are other things that you want to take into consideration whenever you're selecting not just the gun, but the ammunition that you're using. Do you want to use in the shotgun? Do you want to use double-aught buck? Do you want to use slugs? Do you want to use triple-aught buck? Do you want to use a magnum load? Do you want to use birdshot? No, don't use birdshot. There may be an application where that's an appropriate, it's an appropriate way to load up your shotgun. But if you do any research on the effects of birdshot on the human body, you would be hard-pressed to find somebody that would say that that is a good round to use for home defense. It's a lot of little BBs. They're not coming out with a lot of force when they leave the end of the shotgun. And so when they hit the human body, they don't penetrate the skin. It's loud. It's going to be concussive. It's going to disorient, but it's not going to have any lethality to it. Talking about the concussive force of a firearm in a enclosed environment. You're in your hallway, you're in your home, you've got tile floors, there's a lot of echoes, there's a lot of sound that reverberates throughout your home. Do you have ear protection? Are you concerned about ear protection? Do you keep that ear protection with your firearm? If it's on your nightstand, or if it's in your gun case, or if it's on your person. Are you going to pull your 9mm out and put shots on target and then go deaf? Or are you going to be blinded? Are you going to have that concussive force come back on you? Especially in the case of an AR. You're shooting a 7.62 or an AK, 7.62 by 3.9, or a 5.56 or 2.23, or whatever, some exotic rounds, 6.8, 6.5, etc., etc. What are you going to do to mitigate, number one, the blast? So you've got that blast impulse, that recoil impulse from the shot leaving the barrel here, but there's the light, the flash, that sort of thing. So one way that I found around that is a product, and I keep it on my home defense weapon. It's a product from Next Gen Defense. It's their RFD, and it's a muzzle device that pushes the blast and deflects it forward. So it's not coming out the sides, it's not coming out behind you. It reduces the flash, but it also expels the gases away from you. So, and there's other muzzle devices out there that do the exact same thing, but this is one that I've selected. I enjoy it. It works really well. So the last thing I wanted to cover, and this kind of goes back to the sling discussion, is when you're picking your weapon, in this particular case, and this is what I wanted to bring this out for. This has the features that you want. It has the capacity. This is a 60 round Magpul drum. It has a sling. It has an optic where you can see close up, are also far away. So it covers a lot of those. You could easily put a light system on this. But the downside to this is when you've got it, you know, this is a rifle caliber carbine or carbine. You know, when you've got it out, you've got a lot of distance between you and the end of the barrel, right? So it just, you know, you've got your sling on and that's fine, but when it's way the hell out here, you know, you're now having to control the end of this thing, and if somebody else grabs a hold of it before you can pull it back from them, then that's something you're going to have to consider, and that's why I wouldn't recommend only using an AR-15 rifle as your home defense weapon over something else. You know, there's, you know, even an 18-inch barreled shotgun runs into that same scenario. Now, there's techniques to counter that, and you can absolutely take training that will help you better sustain a situation where if somebody grabs the end of that barrel, you know, you can do things where you pull back or you push forward and jerk back. But those are techniques that if you don't train on those and you're not aware, if you're not familiar with them, that you're not going to employ when a situation is occurring. So if you're just the casual home defender, go with a pistol, go with a small, you know, rifle caliber carbine, go with a revolver, go with what works for you. Just factor in all the other parts. So the features that you want to consider, you know, if you're not going to use a long rifle and you're not going to take the time to learn those techniques, and you're just a casual homeowner who wants to have that firearm for peace of mind and protection, you know, just consider the features that I talked about earlier. The magazine capacity. Are you going to understand the manual of arms? Are you going to be able to clear a malfunction? Does it have safeties on it? Does it have an external hammer? You know, are you going to be able to fix a stovepipe? Are you going to understand how many rounds this thing has? And likewise, on a revolver, are you going to understand the amount of capacity it has, the limitations with it, the side effects of shooting, you know, a large caliber, 357, 44, you know, 41, etc., etc. Or are you going to use something a little bit lighter, like a 38 or a 22 or a 32, etc., etc. So, understanding those mechanics, having a light, having a sling if you're going to go with a long weapon, I find it's very important, and for a lot of reasons. So if this is your only resource, you know, I obviously would recommend you go out and check all the other resources that you can find. You know, home defense is a skill, but it's also a responsibility that you need to take very seriously. There's legal issues in every state that vary from state to state. You know, stand your ground, castle doctrine, duty to retreat. Those are all variances in the kind of legal obligations that you have depending on the state that you're in, and you should be aware of that as well. I'm not covering that. There's too much to cover there, but take the time to research it. I know if you're in a less freedom-loving state, stand your ground, castle doctrines and stuff, they're a lot harder to defend against. In the event that there's ever a scenario where you've had to use deadly force, rather. If you ever have to use a firearm to protect your family, your home, you know, your property, whatever, and you've used it and somebody's been hurt or they're not moving, you know, they've been stopped permanently, make sure you call 911 immediately. If you are okay to, you know, you feel that the threat has been neutralized and they're in your house and they're still alive, it's okay to help them. You know, maybe give the firearm to a family member so that they can maintain, you know, cover on that person if need be. And you can help with, you know, trauma care, you know, stopping bleeding or, you know, stabilizing them while EMS comes. Because you don't want to kill somebody if you don't have to. You're trying to stop somebody from causing harm. And when the police show up, just ask for your attorney. You know, you can be polite with them, you can be respectful with them, but they're investigating a crime. That's why they're there. Expect to go to, you know, wherever the police station is and be interrogated. And you don't want to do that unless you have legal representation. Doesn't mean that you can't tell them what happened. It just means that you want to talk to your attorney before you give any on-the-record statements. So, because anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. So at any rate, that's all I got for this video, guys. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I'd appreciate that. Share it with your friends. If you want to have a dialogue, obviously throw the comments in the comments section. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. Subscribers are more important now than ever before. Small channels like myself, right now I'm sitting at under 300 subs. So, I'm a small channel, no doubt about it. But, in order for me to grow, I need your help. I need subscriptions. So anyway, thanks a lot, guys. Hope you found it useful, and I'll see you next time.